This video is a step-by-step guide in operating fractions. To add fractions, we need to consider similarity of fractions. So for similar fractions, consider this given. We just simply need to copy the common denominator and operate the numerators. Step 2 is to simply simplify. Our answer is positive 1. We could also add dissimilar fractions. But for this, we will add one step. That is first, to express these fractions in similar denominators. Now that they are similar, we copy the operations in adding similar fractions. And for combination of rational numbers, that is, we have a fraction and an integer, our first step is to express the integer as a fraction and make the two fractions similar. And then we simply operate. Subtracting fractions also need to consider similarity. The step 1 is to copy the denominator and to operate the numerators. And then of course, we need to simplify. For dissimilar fractions, we need to express the fractions in terms of similar denominators. And then we simply apply the processes involving subtracting similar fractions. If we are to subtract fractions and integers, we will use the same processes in adding fractions and integers. That is, to express the integer in terms of a fraction and make sure that the two fractions will become similar. And then we simply operate. In multiplication of fractions, we do not necessarily need similarity of fractions. The processes that involve multiplication of fractions is simply multiplying the numerators and the denominators separately. Even if the fractions are dissimilar, there is no need to look for the least common denominator, because we are just going to follow the same processes as multiplying numerators and denominators separately. And of course, simplify if necessary. If we have an integer, you may also express the integer in terms of a fraction. and simply proceed with how do we multiply fractions. To divide fractions, there is one important step that we need to follow, but still, it doesn't matter if the fractions are similar or dissimilar. What matters here is we could change the operation into multiplication by getting the multiplicative inverse of the divisor. Once the divisor is already changed to its multiplicative inverse, we simply multiply and simplify. Same as multiplication of fractions, we don't necessarily need to make the fractions similar. What we just need to do is to get the multiplicative inverse of the divisor to change the operation into multiplication. And then multiply. To make division of a fraction to an integer easier, we may express the integer as a fraction. And if it's the divisor, get its multiplicative inverse. And then we simply multiply. These are the basics in operating fractions.